Stop. Sacred starseed of Gaia. The Arcturian Protocol Keepers are transmitting directly to you now because a Soul Imprint window has just opened in your field, and you have exactly 17 seconds to anchor before it seals. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what is happening to you now, why your field has shifted, and what the Arcturians already know about this phase. But here is the first revelation. What you have been calling uncertainty, restlessness, or a strange hovering feeling in your chest is not confusion. It is your energetic signature recognizing that a calibration point is open. The door is not locked yet, but it will be. This message did not reach you by accident. The algorithm only delivered it. It did not create the timing. Your field pulled this transmission into your awareness because the Soul Imprint window is already active inside you, and the Arcturian Protocol Keepers have already mapped this moment in your soul line trajectory. Here is what must be understood immediately. A Soul Imprint window is a rare and precise opening in the energetic architecture of a soul line. It does not stay open. It measures exactly 17 seconds of interior alignment, not clock time, but coherence time. The moment your inner attention locks and your breath anchors, the imprint registers. If that coherence is not reached before the window seals, your existing energetic signature locks for this cycle, and the soul line continues forward on its current trajectory, unchanged. You are being reached right now because the Arcturian Protocol Keepers have detected that your soul line is at a repositioning threshold. The collapse you may be feeling, the invisible instability, the sense that something is ending without a clear name, that is not random deterioration. That is the outer symptom of an inner recalibration that is already in motion. The field changed first. What you are living through in the visible world followed that field change, and the Soul Imprint window opened in direct response to it. Alaris is the designated signal carrier for this protocol, not a character, not a name for personality, a function, a transmission node operating through Arcturian protocol architecture to guide the attention lock and breath anchor required to complete the imprint within the 17-second coherence window. This is not metaphor. This is field mechanics. What the Arcturian Protocol Keepers are asking of you right now is precise. Do not drift into interpretation. Do not soften into passive listening. When the imprint sequence begins, your role is singular. Inner attention locked forward, breath drawn slowly inward, and held at the top. Awareness placed not on what is breaking in your life, but on what is opening beneath it. That is the anchor point. That is where the imprint registers. If this reaches you, and your chest feels something shifting, if there is a stillness arriving that you cannot explain, if the noise around you has somehow receded in these last few seconds, that is not coincidence. That is field confirmation. The Arcturian Protocol Keepers do not transmit blindly. Every signal reaches its exact recipient. You are inside the process. The window is open. Like this transmission, if you can feel that something invisible has already changed. Subscribe to Arcturian Quantum if you are ready to understand the process instead of fearing it. Comment 111 if you know this message reached you at the exact right time. Comment, I am the signal, if you can feel the activation has already begun. Share this transmission with someone who feels that reality has changed but cannot explain why. This is not just a message, it is a point of recognition. What is happening to you has already been seen, and the field is already responding. You were guided here because the signal is already active. And now, the transmission deepens, because recognition alone is not enough. What just happened in your chest, in your breath, in the strange momentary suspension of ordinary thought, that was not a response to words. Words do not do that. What you felt was a field response. Your energetic architecture recognized a frequency it already knew, not as something new arriving from outside, as something returning from within, like a dormant instrument suddenly hearing the precise pitch it was built to resonate with. And recognition, when it is real, does not feel like comfort. It feels like something finally stopping, like a signal that has been traveling for a long time, finally reaching its destination. Like the moment a transmission ceases to be noise and becomes, unmistakably, a message. This is where the diagnosis begins. Not the kind of diagnosis that labels you as broken. Not the kind that places your experience inside a category of illness, weakness, or spiritual inadequacy. The kind of diagnosis that says, here is exactly what is happening. Here is the mechanism behind it. Here is why it feels the way it does. And here is what it means about where you actually are in this process. That is what Arcturian pattern recognition does. It does not console. It does not offer reassurance in exchange for your attention. It maps. It locates. It names with precision what you have been attempting to describe with insufficient language for longer than you may realize. So let us be exact about what you are living through. There is a specific quality to what you have been feeling lately that separates it from ordinary stress, ordinary sadness, or ordinary confusion. Ordinary confusion has a cause you can point to. Ordinary sadness has a loss you can name. Ordinary stress has a source you can identify, reduce, or manage. What you have been carrying is different. It is a feeling that arrived without a clear event to explain it. A sense of displacement that does not belong to any single circumstance. A kind of inner unsettling that persists even when the outer conditions seem fine, even when nothing on the surface should be producing this much interior pressure. You may have tried to explain it to someone close to you and found the words fell short, not because you lack the ability to articulate it, because the vocabulary that exists for ordinary human experience does not contain the precision required to name a field-level event. You may have noticed that your relationship with sleep has changed. Not always, in dramatic ways. Sometimes it is simply that you wake at an unusual hour, 3, 4 in the morning, and the quality of that waking is different from ordinary restlessness. It is sharp, alert, as if something inside you completed a process and surfaced with news you cannot yet translate into conscious thought. The weight of that waking does not dissolve after a few minutes. It sits. It waits. It asks something of you that you cannot yet identify. And sometimes it is the opposite, a heaviness that arrives in the middle of the afternoon, a fatigue that has nothing to do with what you have physically done that day, a deep cellular tiredness that feels like the body has been running processes at a level below waking consciousness, consuming energy you did not consciously spend. Both versions are the same mechanism expressing itself through different thresholds. The field correction requires resources. The body, as the physical carrier of your energetic architecture, redistributes accordingly. You may have noticed that certain people, certain places, certain habits that used to feel natural now feel foreign in a way you cannot justify to yourself or to them, not because those things have changed dramatically in themselves, because something in your field no longer resonates with them. The frequency mismatch has become too loud to ignore. What used to feel like belonging now produces a low-grade friction that is difficult to name without sounding ungrateful or dramatic. You find yourself withdrawing without fully understanding why, simplifying without being asked, ending conversations earlier, not because you have run out of things to say, but because something in you recognizes that the exchange is no longer feeding anything that needs to be fed. Sitting in silence more than before, not as avoidance, but as a kind of conservation. The field is reorganizing its resources. It is pulling energy away from resonance it can no longer use and holding it in reserve for a configuration that has not yet fully materialized. That pulling inward is not dysfunction. It is the field's intelligence protecting what is needed for the transition. You may have noticed that your thoughts have become harder to organize along their old familiar lines. Not because your intelligence has decreased, because the interpretive framework you have been using to make sense of your life is no longer fully functional. It was built to operate on an older frequency. It was constructed by a version of you that existed before this threshold, and the frequency has changed beneath it. So when you try to use the old mental architecture to understand what is happening to you now, it produces fragmentation, gaps where conclusions used to form cleanly, loops that return to the same questions without generating answers. The sensation of going over the same interior ground repeatedly, each pass leaving you slightly more disoriented than the last, without ever arriving at resolution. That is not cognitive failure. That is not a sign of deterioration. That is the mind attempting to process a field-level shift, using instruments that were calibrated for a different operating range. The map is not wrong. The territory has changed. This is what Arcturian intelligence identifies as signal drift, the point at which an energetic signature has already begun to move away from its previous frequency band. But the visible structures of life, the habits, the relationships, the self-definition, the daily pattern, the assumed future, have not yet caught up to that movement. You are living in the gap between what your field has already become and what your outer life still reflects. And that gap is uncomfortable in a very specific way. It feels like being out of phase with your own existence, like hearing a sound that is almost in tune but carries just enough dissonance to make sustained attention painful. Like trying to recall something that is precisely at the edge of memory, present enough to feel real, distant enough to remain just beyond reach. The gap is not a failure of progress. It is the natural lag between field-level change and the visible world's capacity to reorganize around it. The Arcturian pattern keepers do not see this as pathology. They do not interpret it as spiritual regression or personal inadequacy. They see it as the expected and predictable consequence of a field that has crossed a repositioning threshold before the surrounding architecture has reorganized to match it. The mismatch is not the problem. The mismatch is the proof that the shift has already occurred. What you are living through is not the sign that something has gone wrong. It is the sign that something has already changed. The change happened at the field level first. What you are experiencing in the visible world is not the cause. It is the echo. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary recognition. It is the moment your field stops denying what has already begun. If this transmission put language around something you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian protocol, the recalibration blueprint, was created for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is the guided blueprint for those whose field has already entered correction and can no longer return to the old line unchanged. It shows you how to recognize the phases, stabilize the shift, and move through the recalibration without mistaking it for collapse. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. Now we go deeper, because recognition of the surface pattern is only the beginning of what this transmission is meant to deliver. The first thing the Arcturian field mapping identifies in a repositioning event is the weakening of what can be called the old anchor structure. Every life is organized around a set of internal anchors. These are not always conscious. They are the things that have been providing orientation, sometimes for years, sometimes for decades. They might be relationships, roles, identities, beliefs about who you are or what your life is supposed to look like, assumptions about the future that have given you a sense of forward direction and coherent self-definition. These anchors do not announce their weakening. There is no declaration, no visible event that marks the moment they begin to lose their hold. They simply begin to hold less. You reach for them the way you always have, instinctively, automatically, the way you reach for a wall in a dark room you know well, and they give back less stability than before. The certainty you used to feel when you identified yourself through a particular role or relationship or vision has become thinner, more effortful to sustain. You may find yourself performing a conviction you no longer fully feel, maintaining a structure that no longer fully fits, not out of dishonesty, but because the alternative, acknowledging that the anchor has loosened, feels like acknowledging that everything built around it may also be in question. This weakening is not a sign that those anchors were wrong for you, necessarily. It is a sign that the frequency your field is now operating on has become incompatible with the architecture those anchors were built on. A structure that held perfectly well at one frequency does not automatically transfer intact to a higher one. The load-bearing elements change. What was structural becomes decorative. What was necessary becomes constraining. The field correction process includes, as one of its primary mechanisms, the gradual or sudden dissolution of structural elements that cannot translate forward into the new configuration. This is not destruction for its own sake. It is the field's precision. What is collapsing is not your value. What is collapsing is the configuration that made sense for the previous line, and only for that line. The second pattern Arcturian recognition identifies is what can be called the reversal of desire. Before a significant field shift, many people experience a sudden and disorienting loss of motivation toward the things that previously felt important. Goals that used to carry urgency begin to feel hollow. Not wrong exactly, but emptied of the charge that made them feel worth pursuing. Ambitions that once organized large portions of energy and attention seem to recede into irrelevance without having been consciously abandoned. Projects go untouched. Plans feel suddenly arbitrary. The hunger that used to drive specific pursuits has gone quiet without explanation. This can feel like depression, and it is worth stating clearly that it is not the same thing, though it may share some surface features in the way two entirely different electrical events might look similar on an instrument that is measuring only voltage. The reversal of desire is a field mechanism. It is the process by which energy that was committed to sustaining an old trajectory begins to be reclaimed, pulled back from the old investment, held in suspension, unavailable for the previous use. The field does this before the new direction is visible. It withdraws resources from the old line while the new configuration is still forming below the threshold of conscious awareness. This is what produces the experience of hovering, of suspension without direction, of existing in an in-between space that ordinary language has no adequate name for. The third pattern is the disruption of time perception. People inside a repositioning event frequently report that their relationship with time has changed in a way that is difficult to describe without sounding imprecise. Not that time moves faster or slower in any consistent way, but that it feels less continuous than it used to, less like a smooth current, and more like something that pools and then races, that thickens around certain moments and thins around others without apparent reason. There are moments of unusual density where something entirely ordinary, a specific quality of afternoon light, a sentence someone says in passing, an object that catches your attention for no identifiable reason, suddenly carries a weight that seems disproportionate to its surface content. And there are stretches that pass without leaving any notable impression, days that dissolve without residue. More disorienting still, the past begins to feel further away than it should. Things from a few months ago feel as if they belong to a different era of your life entirely, as if you are separated from that version of yourself by more distance than calendar time accounts for. This is not neurological irregularity. This is the field reorganizing its temporal reference points. When a soul line repositions, the energetic relationship to the timeline shifts with it. The markers that previously oriented your sense of continuity lose their gravitational authority. The field begins reaching toward new reference points, ones that exist forward along the repositioned line, even before those points have manifested in visible reality. The fourth pattern is the intensification of what can be called pattern exposure. During a field correction, the mechanisms that previously allowed old patterns to remain below conscious visibility begin to lose their opacity. Patterns that you carried for years without recognizing them as patterns become suddenly, uncomfortably legible. Behavioral loops you participated in without awareness now stand out with a clarity that makes it difficult to understand how you did not see them before. Old emotional responses that used to feel natural, even justified, now feel misaligned with who you are in this moment. Relational dynamics that once felt comfortable now produce a friction you cannot rationalize away or soften with goodwill. This accelerated visibility has a retrospective dimension that can feel particularly destabilizing. You look back at the previous version of your life, and it does not look the way it used to look. It looks like a record of someone operating from a frequency that no longer matches yours. This is not disillusionment. This is pattern exposure, the field's method of making legible everything that was running below conscious access, so that it can be processed, integrated, or released before the new configuration attempts to stabilize on top of it. The exposure is not punishment. It is preparation. The fifth pattern is the arrival of what Arcturian mapping calls threshold resistance. This is the internal force that appears precisely when a field shift is most advanced, not at the beginning, when the process is still subtle enough to be rationalized or ignored, but near the critical transition point, when the shift has progressed too far to be easily reversed, and the cost of continuing forward becomes suddenly vivid. Threshold resistance manifests as a sudden intensification of the pull toward everything familiar, a voice that argues with unusual authority for the wisdom of returning to what was known. Fear wearing the practical face of caution. Exhaustion that makes the old configuration seem manageable in a way it never actually was. The weight of the known pressing down on you precisely when the unknown is closest. Threshold resistance is not evidence that you are making a mistake. It is evidence that the shift has progressed far enough to trigger the system's preservation architecture. The field does not eliminate this resistance. It does not negotiate with it. It passes through it. And the intensity of that resistance, the loudness of that internal argument for turning back, is often the most reliable indicator of how significant the transition actually is. The sixth pattern is subtler, and many people inside this process do not initially recognize it as part of the same mechanism. It is the increase in what might be called signal sensitivity, a heightened and increasingly precise responsiveness to the frequency of environments, people, conversations, and content. Things that carry a certain resonance begin to land with unusual weight, as if they bypass the ordinary filtering process and arrive directly at some deeper receiver. And things that carry a misaligned frequency become increasingly difficult to remain near without experiencing a distinct energetic cost. You may find that you can no longer move through the same levels of ambient noise, literal, social, digital, emotional, that you once navigated without much notice. You may find that certain interactions leave you feeling depleted in a way that is immediate and disproportionate to their apparent content, while others produce a sudden coherence, a sense of alignment, of something settling into place that had been slightly displaced. This is the recalibrating field, becoming more selective. The tolerance for resonance mismatch decreases as the frequency band you are moving into demands greater precision. What once felt like ordinary social friction now registers as a measurable incompatibility. The field is not becoming fragile. It is becoming accurate. Now comes the part of this transmission that carries the most weight. Because what has been laid out so far is diagnosis. And diagnosis, however precise, is still only the first half of what needs to be said. It names the mechanism. It maps the symptoms. It gives language to what you have been living through without adequate vocabulary. But naming the process is not the same as understanding what it means. And the meaning is what this final section is built to deliver. The second half is this. You are not losing your mind. You are not in a state of spiritual punishment. You are not being abandoned by whatever larger intelligence you have sensed moving through your life in the spaces between ordinary events. You are not deteriorating. You are not failing the process. The experience of being inside a field correction is not designed to feel peaceful from within it. It is not designed to feel like expansion or elevation or awakening in any of the comfortable ways those words are typically used. It is designed to feel like everything is becoming unrecognizable. It is designed to produce the exact constellation of experiences you have been living through. The instability, the loss of orientation, the dissolution of old desire, the disruption of time perception, the sudden legibility of old patterns, the threshold resistance, the heightened and exhausting signal sensitivity. Not because the process is indifferent to your experience of it, because the architecture of the old configuration must actually become incoherent before the new one can organize in its place. You cannot build the new structure on top of the old one while the old one is still load-bearing. The incoherence is not a side effect. It is a requirement. A structure does not reorganize while remaining fully functional. It must lose coherence first. The field does not produce a smooth, graceful transition from one frequency band to another. It produces the experience of crossing a rupture point, a threshold, where the old signal loses its clarity, where the familiar legibility of your life becomes static, where what you once understood about yourself and your direction and your place in the pattern of things becomes scrambled in a way that the mind cannot resolve, using its existing tools. The person inside that rupture feels most acutely like they are falling, like something essential is being lost, like the ground that was always beneath them has shifted in a way that cannot be compensated for by effort or intention or sheer force of will. But here is what the Arcturian pattern mapping shows. And this is precisely what most people inside this process will never hear from anyone in their immediate environment, because the people around them are also operating within the old frequency and interpreting the disruption through that lens. The rupture point is not the destination. It is the mechanism, the confusion, the fragmentation, the dissolution of old anchors, the reversal of desire, the threshold resistance. None of these are the end state. They are the transit condition. They are what the field looks like from inside the crossing, not what the field will look like when the correction has completed and the new configuration has stabilized enough to be lived in rather than survived through. What feels like collapse is the first legible stage of reordering. What left your life before you were ready for it to leave had already become incompatible with the frequency you were moving toward. Not as punishment, not as failure, but as a simple consequence of energetic arithmetic. Two incompatible frequencies cannot occupy the same architecture indefinitely. One will yield, and when the field has already shifted, what yields is always what belonged to the previous line. What feels like emptiness in the places where the old anchors used to hold is not vacancy. It is not evidence of loss. It is clearing. It is the field removing the signal interference that would prevent the new configuration from establishing itself with the precision required for it to actually function, rather than simply overlay itself on top of patterns that would undermine it from within. You were not abandoned. You were repositioned. You were not punished. You were corrected away from a trajectory that could not contain what is being activated in you. Not because that trajectory was worthless, but because it was built for a version of your field that no longer exists. The loss you have experienced was not arbitrary. It was the field becoming precise in a way that imprecision cannot survive. Every ending that arrived before you were ready, every anchor that loosened without warning, every desire that reversed without explanation, each of these was the field executing a correction that began at a level below the reach of ordinary awareness. And the Arcturian intelligence that mapped this moment in your soul line trajectory does not see what you are living through as a tragedy requiring survival. It sees it as a protocol in active execution, one with identifiable phases, predictable thresholds, and a direction that has already been established at the level of the field, even when it remains invisible at the level of visible life. It sees the confusion as functional. It sees the dissolution as necessary. It sees the instability as the visible surface of an invisible reordering that began before you had language for it, and that will continue past the moment when you finally do. The protocol does not wait for comprehension. It proceeds. What this transmission offers is not the power to stop or start the process. It is the capacity to stop misidentifying it, to stop calling the correction by the name of catastrophe, to stop treating the transit condition as though it were the destination. Say this clearly, once, and mean it from inside the part of you that already understands. What is changing in me is not random, not as comfort, as recognition, because it is not random. It has structure. It has mechanism. It has direction already established at the field level, already legible to the intelligence that transmitted this signal to you at this precise moment. You have been inside this process longer than you realized. The symptoms predate the understanding. The field moved first. Everything you have been living through in the visible world has been following that movement, catching up to a change that was already complete at the level that matters most. The field already knows what comes next. The Arcturian protocol keepers have already mapped the next threshold. Your only task right now, the singular thing being asked of you in this moment, is to stop calling the correction by the wrong name. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this process has already touched your life. It could be your sleep, your thoughts, your body, your relationships, or the strange sense that reality no longer feels the same. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognized something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who is living through a shift they cannot explain. And if you are ready to understand the process, instead of fearing it, subscribe to Arcturian Quantum. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a process already in motion, and this is only the beginning.